Hey, John Henderson here with HH Law, and today we're asking a simple question. Who gets the house during a divorce? First, let's consider what happens during the divorce proceedings. There's an at-fault divorce, and then there's a no-fault divorce. We've covered this in other videos, so be sure to take a look at those for reference. But if nobody is at fault, if it's a 50-50 sort of breakup, we are trying to divide assets equitably in a half and half situation. Custody has not been defined yet. We're not sure what's going on with the kids, but we do know that there is a house. The house is a significant issue that has to be contended with. In that context, there are really just two options. Option number one, somebody gets to stay in the house and pay the other one off. Option number two is that you sell the house and split the proceeds 50-50. Let's take a look a little bit at what really happens when you're considering your home as an asset. We'll use an example. I've said that you have a home that is worth $500,000, that you have a $300,000 loan left on that house. So for easy math, we're looking at $200,000 left in what we would call the equity in the home. Each spouse would get $100,000 apiece. That's generally how that goes. Now, let's consider what happens in a context where one person would get to stay in the home and the other person would buy the other party out. If we have a situation where the husband, for instance, is the primary breadwinner and is making the most money, wife is maybe home with the kids, we will take this kind of classic example and roll with it. She gets full custody of the children. Husband, who has financial income coming in, is going to then probably be asked to leave the marital home, leave wife there with the children, and then pay child support or alimony or whatever the other terms are during that separation period or divorce period. But that's how that often plays out in that context. But it doesn't always play out exactly like that. A lot of times you could have the exact reverse situation going on where dad stays in with the kids. We've had cases where wife had significant substance abuse problems and needed to get out of the house. The point is that when children are involved, a lot of times whoever gets custody of the children is going to stay in the marital home. Now, figuring out who gets money is a whole different issue because you've got to determine whether or not the person staying in the marital home actually has other financial resources to be able to buy the other one out. So that if you've got the instance of husband and wife splitting up, husband's making most or all of the money, wife gets custody of the kids, stays in the house, husband is owed $100,000 on that example that I shared with you earlier. How is wife going to give him that $100,000? Now, that is a math problem to be worked out between lawyers to try to figure out how that's going to happen. Waiving some alimony or some other asset may be a way to make that happen. But it also might be that you have to sell the house asset in order to come up with the cash to split to each person. So what are the issues that go into helping decide, once we've decided that the home is a significant issue, what helps us decide how we equitably apportion that asset or any asset? A couple things come to mind here. The first is, was the home purchased prior to the marriage? That could be a significant thing. Let's say, for instance, we've had clients that got an inheritance, bought a house, got married a few years later, lived in the house as husband and wife, had a baby, maybe two, but the duration of the marriage is 3, 4, 5 years. You're probably going to see the person who purchased that house remain in the house, at least in South Carolina, assuming that there isn't some other negotiation that goes on in that context. But giving up that asset that existed before the marriage and was purchased with somebody's inheritance, that's going to be a really high hill to climb for the other spouse to try to get ownership of that house. But generally speaking, when we're looking at equitably dividing property, such as a house, we're looking at the duration of the marriage, we're looking at tax consequences, Who has the ability to pay for the asset? Some homes, there's a lot of insurance associated with it, a lot of upkeep and maintenance on older homes particularly. There are tax consequences with these things. Was the asset a marital asset or a non-marital asset? And in that context that I mentioned a minute ago, that is a non-marital asset. And then you've got a question of alimony, whether or not alimony is going to be paid out and how that is going to play into this. So essentially, the home, when we're looking at it, is a very emotionally driven asset. People have a lot of connections and memories and experiences with a home, but it's also really, for us lawyers, a math problem to be figured out. How do we figure out the arithmetic around dealing with the house? Because for a lot of people, that is their biggest asset. So when dealing with a home, we've got to make this a math problem and not an emotional problem. And a lot of these issues that I've addressed here are going to help us try to figure out what we're going to do with different scenarios. But keep in mind, this is all fact-based. So your scenario or a friend's scenario or any other scenario out there is going to have a different set of facts. They're going to play into who stays in the marital home. We're dealing with custody issues. We're dealing with alimony issues. We're dealing with a plethora of different other scenarios and factors that go into helping make that determination. All that is to say is that if you are located in South Carolina, we encourage you to call our law office so that we can talk to you about whatever issues you have out there. If you are not in South Carolina, we're happy to provide videos like this to provide you with the information necessary so that you can make decisions that best affect your life and the life of your family. That's what these videos are for. But if you have an issue and you're outside of South Carolina, we encourage you to locate a lawyer in your state and ask them state-specific questions. I'm John Henderson. This is HH Law. Thanks for watching.